So, hello everybody, good evening, or whatever in which time zone you are located. BiCoTa is back, the Bitwig Community Talk, already in episode number 6. And I'm here with my good friend Odo. Hello, Odo.
Hello, Jürgen. How are you tonight?
I'm fine, and it's cold outside, but very warm inside.
Yeah, weather is quite cold currently. You're right.
Yeah, and BiCoTa, we talk everything Bitwig, but also all other things around Bitwig, which are somehow related to Bitwig and what's happening in the news, Bitwig related or not. And normally we also have a guest, and we have one today. And it's great that we have Paul Walker here, also known as baconpaul. Hey, good evening.
Hello, everyone. How are you all?
We are
Totally
fine.
And
Good.
happy you're here.
Yes, well, good. And everyone can hear everyone okay. So I think we're all fine.
Yeah.
And in case you have no idea who Paul is, so Paul is very active in lots of open source projects. You might heard about Surge XT, which is a totally free synthesizer. And yeah, we will give you more info about these things later on. And they just released also another free plugin, which is great. We will also have a look at it later on, Shortcircuit, which is a free sampler. And yeah, Paul, tell us all about you.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me onto the live stream podcast, whichever noun is the correct noun. I appreciate being here and glad to talk to everyone. I'm Paul, and I am one of the members of the Surge Synth Team, and we're a team of musicians and programmers and electronic music enthusiasts who develop a set of free synthesizer plugins and maintain a set of free synthesizer plugins for the world, free and open source. The most popular of which is Surge XT, which is quite popular. The last I checked, had been more than 250,000 downloads of 1.3.4. And so, assuming, even if you assume sort of a 10-to-1 download install to actually use it in your DAW rate, it's quite a widely used synth. And we have a variety of other tools and products that we support and build and care for and nurture and all the other verbs that you have to apply to software. I also have been an active participant in the CLAP project, which is a new plugin standard, working with our friends at Bitwig, working with Alex and the team there. Where I've been a reviewer. I wrote the Juice extensions for Clap with Jatan. I wrote the Clap wrapper with Timo. I wrote the Clap info tool and have worked on a lot of the extensions and documentation things there. And so that's been fun. And then I also, have a collection of sort of idiosyncratic other pieces of software that I write myself that some people like and are a bit more idiosyncratic. In addition to that, I'm an active musician. I play in a rock band here in New York and also have a small jazz group I play with occasionally and do solo stuff and, starting to do some playing with a singer and stuff. I play piano and guitar and bass pretty well. And so all of those. And thrilled to be here and talk about open source software and Surge and Shortcircuit. I think the big sort of news that's contemporaneous with this podcast is that we just took Shortcircuit, which is a sampler plugin. I'll talk a little about the history of Shortcircuit and Surge in a second. We took that into beta this weekend, and so we started having more people use it because we took the scary alpha tag off it on Friday afternoon. Which was you have to pick a time when you do that. And so we picked Friday afternoon to do that, which is exciting.
And we already had a look, so we're really curious to get more explanations from you. But for everybody who's maybe wondering what is the relation to Bitwig here, and when I did some research, I found the first edition of the Bitwig homepage, which looks really interesting and a bit of old school back then. And it says, Bitwig is based in Berlin and founded by Klaas Johansen, and that's the guy who was one of the main developers of Bitwig, and also he had the company Vember Audio, and Vember Audio is nothing less than Surge as well as Shortcircuit in its first editions. And it says also nicely, check out Bitwig, the next big thing for music production. So pretty old school. And you can find this on archive.org if you want to take a look at yourself.
Yeah, and look, I think an important part of the Surge story is you see version 1.5.2 released here in March 2009, and version 1.6 was still not released in 2018 or 2018 or so. Not for any lack of passion or creativity, but just because writing Bitwig was taking an awful lot of time. And I think the interesting thing that Eclipse chose to do was, rather than just abandon it and leave it at 1.5.2 forever, he open sourced it. And I think that original gift to the audio community of choosing to do that with his unfinished 1.6.0 release, and it was unfinished in a couple of ways, but was the gift that sort of started the activity that became the Surge Synth Team. And so, I think, at the heart of our efforts is a gratitude for that moment. And that sort of inspired us all to be people who give things to the music community. And the difference between Surge 1.6.0 and Surge XT 1.3.4, which is 179, like 5, 6, 7 versions later, and 7 years later, 8 years later, is enormous. But still, that DNA is at the heart of it. And really grateful for that moment of open sourcing it to begin the dynamic that led to the team we have today.
So I'm really curious about that. So normally it's always people call about, oh, why is it not simply open sourced? And simply it needs a lot of people and lots of power to support something like this, or even get into the code. So what was different with Surge and Shortcircuit that it did work? How did this team come together?
Well, the Surge and Shortcircuit are two slightly different stories. Let me tell the Surge one first, which is look, the code that was put on GitHub at first, and the efforts in that sort of first month did actually compile and mostly work on Windows, right? So there was a starting point of something that worked on Windows, and also there was still a super active community who loved the synth, who came around it, right? And that initial group, tried all sorts of things to get it working, start doing fixes. And that sort of attracted the attention of folks who wanted to screw around with music software. And I was one of those folks. I tell this sort of semi-joking story, but it's not really a joke. It's kind of how it happened. My wife got me a Rolly C-board, which if my camera was rotated this way, you would see propped up against the wall here for my birthday that year. And I was looking for MPE synths, and I saw, oh, here's this open source MPE synth. The CDM had an article about it, right? Peter had written, Surge is now open source. I'm like, oh, cool. I'll go download it, and and I downloaded it, and I tried to build it, and it didn't build at all on my Mac, like at all. Just errors everywhere, and so I kind of gave up on it. And then that was September of 2018, I guess, right? And then a few months later, I was, I had a couple of days at Thanksgiving. I'm like, oh, let's go take a look at that again and see what happens, and sort of start poking at it a little and get one thing working, another thing working. And then all of a sudden, like, oh my goodness, this thing loaded in Logic and made a sound when I pressed a note, right? And I opened the UI and it doesn't crash, but it shows something. Who knows what? Like, I don't even know what this is supposed to do. So, but I, collect all this up and send it as a pull request. And it got merged, and then 2 minutes later, I was made a maintainer of the software. So, like, literally, like, and I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. And look, there were several of us working on it at the time, including Alex, who worked on Clap with me, was working on it some, and a bunch of other people showed up. So I one of the things I want to make sure is clear is that, I think we have 50 code contributors to Surge to date, and I think we have maybe 15 or 20 to Shortcircuit, right? So these are
50 contributors.
50, yeah, I think unique GitHub contributors,
okay.
and that's if you exclude people who did test only or design only or documentation only, right? Wow. There's the user who helped me design and implement all the tuning implementation in Surge. I don't think has ever committed anything to our GitHub repo, right? So not in that count. So that hey, Omri. It's a pretty broad ranging project, but a few of us sort of there's a few of us who have merge rights, and can make sure that the right thing happens, and each of us has our own contribution project. One of the things I contribute is I've thought a lot about how to build software systems, and so I make sure things like it can build, and there's a version people can download and all those sorts of things. Some of that infrastructural stuff is some of the stuff I've contributed to the project, and I think we all work hard to make it a community where people can come in and add value in whatever form they're capable of to the products and synths. But back to my point, I was made a maintainer and I didn't quite know what was going on, and so a group of people in those early sort of 6 to 9 months. We had one person who was a professional tester, and they just went and grabbed every bug report from every forum they could find and got it in GitHub in a clean way and tried to reproduce it. Right? We had a person who had actually ported something working to Linux, who made it work. The very first version of the VS2 work on Linux, and then later I did a bunch of work with some of the DAW developers to make it with the VST3 version work on Linux as well, which is a little more painful. We found and fixed bugs, and then eventually we got it to 1.6.0. I think we almost immediately after that released 1.6.1, like 2 minutes later or something like that. There have been a couple of most of our releases are pretty stable, but I think we have 2 other releases that lasted less than 48 hours. And then we realized we had a synth that kind of worked pretty well, and we could start fixing bugs and adding features. And so we fixed bugs. For a while, I would sit down to write a piece of music with Surge, and every time I would find a bug. And now I can write a piece of music with Surge and actually write a piece of music, right? So that's kind of cool. But then we added some more oscillator types, a lot more filter types, some more effects. We ported a bunch of infrastructure to Juice. We added a lot more capabilities. We sort of have taken a very maximalist design approach towards Surge. And as we broke it up and made it work in VCV Rack, which some of the more popular modules in Rack. We refactored all the code so that it's available as libraries, and all the time we kept it unambiguously free and community driven. And so we're kind of proud of what we built with it, right? So it's a fun synth. If you haven't tried Surge, you should try it, especially if you're a Bitwig user, because we're actually one of the synths that does full support for all the clap polyphonic modulation and voice level control, and all those features that Bitwig is so wonderful at are things that honestly, we used Surge to test those features when we were developing clap in Bitwig back in the day. So,
since you named clap now, so the Clever Audio plugin, if someone has not heard about that, the still quite new interface for audio plugins as well. How did you get involved in that? So it's something that Alex started.
How did I get involved in that? This question I ask myself every day. I don't know, man. Like
you didn't put your hand fast enough down.
Exactly right. Exactly right. It's a step forward if you volunteer, but everyone else knew to step back, right? No, it wasn't like that's unfair. I'm glad to be part of the effort. I have thought a lot about open source software and standards through my whole career, and VST3, especially before they made the license change, which they only made a month and a half ago, was really not an appropriately licensed piece of software, despite all its technical features, which some people may call deficiencies, but I won't go that far. The license was a mess, and a bunch of people were getting increasingly worried about it. I think rightly so, and that appeared as an alternative. And so I told Urs and Alex and the rest of the team that I'd be happy to help. I thought a lot about establishing standards and establishing pieces of open source software, and so we went ahead and did it. Started with Alex at sort of a version 0.19. I think it was 0.26 was the last pre 1.0 version. And then we were getting ready to go live, and we took it live, and it was a hit. A lot of the social capital that the Bitwig and Yuhi teams had was applied to getting people excited about it. And I think a lot of the technical decisions that are in the protocol made a bunch of developers think it was a reasonable thing to work with. And so I think it's been a pretty successful project. It's been a successful project in as much as it gives us sort of a way to think about how to structure a plugin, even if you end up projecting it into the other formats. A Shortcircuit is a clap at its heart, and projects into VST and AU via the wrapper technology. And so that makes it very easy for me to think about things like note expressions and, if we had more edge parameters, polyphonic modulation, which some of the other synths I've worked on also have as well. And so, yeah, I think it's been a pretty successful project.
Definitely. And I'm on your Discord server too, and I always love to tell people, if you start with something or you didn't ever heard of Surge, just try it, because if you get into it, it will be one of your go-to synthesizers, at least, because it has so many features, and people can dive in there for months and not even catch everything there.
Yeah, it's incredibly deep. In some ways, it's incredibly deep, like a really rich instrument. In other ways, it's incredibly deep, like a very kind of dark and scary well. And so, depending on how you're facing it. Sorry, Joe. The thing I think that is the critique of Surge, I find the most that resonates with you the most is sort of the maximalist design makes it great for people who know how synthesizers work, and a little harder as your first synth. If someone has never used a synthesizer, I may encourage them to try, and they want a free one, I try Odin first, right? There's a couple others that are a little easier to start modeling with. But look, Surge is fully capable of doing almost anything you want in the electronic music space, if you're in a synthesizer workflow. And we're really proud of what we've built, and we think it sounds great and it performs well and it's feature rich, and you can make exciting sounds with it. You can use it in a variety of contexts. And one of the other things that's fun about the project is, since we actually aren't selling it and never intend to sell it, and we don't have to evaluate our decisions based on what the return will be. We know what the return will be for every investment we make, right? The return will be, our personal karmic pleasure. And so we can undertake activities that I think you wouldn't undertake. There's certainly projects that I've done in Surge that if I was actually running a plugin company, I wouldn't ever do, right?
Okay.
And
for example?
So wouldn't ever do is strong, right? So I would have been probably more tactical about how we handled accessibility, even though I'm very proud of the work we've done there, right?
Okay.
I would have still approached it, but a lot of the things we did that make it, in many ways, Surge is the best synth in the world for blind electronic musicians, right? And that was a lot of detailed work that I love doing, and I'm super proud of having done it. I'm not sure if I had to evaluate it versus the number of sales increases I would have at $59 a pop, that effort would have made sense, right? And so I'm not saying that means I shouldn't do the effort. It means I'm glad I didn't have to make that calculus before I did the effort, right? And so that's sort of the calculus there. And look, we have a bunch of filter models. Every time we find an open source filter model, we're like, ooh, can we put this into Surge? And so, there's a bit of a, would I have done that with a commercial product? Maybe, but perhaps I would have been a bit more focused on a couple of those things. I don't know though. It's kind of a kitchen sinky synthesizer, and that works well. Look, there's some things I definitely wouldn't change, right? The string resonator into the K35 filter is a sound I think I use all the time, right? And those are features we added as we went along, expanding the synth. I think that's really fun. Oh, and hey, here's the we're seeing pictures.
There's even a VCV rack edition, or how does that work, or was that?
So the VCV rack edition, well, there have been two VCV rack editions. The very first VCV rack edition, which luckily you won't show and people won't see and won't use anymore, was I was trying to debug. The innards of Surge, and it was impossible to look inside Surge because you didn't have access to the components on a sort of standalone basis to plug into a scope. And I've been developing VCV rack plugins since 0.5. what makes you break this? All right, so I've been developing VCV rack plugins from rack 0.5 before it was even at 1.0. And I thought, I should just, take this pile of code that we have and put a rack front end on it so I can hook a line up to it and plug it into a scope, right? And that became a sort of set off, here's the components of Surge exposed to VCV rack. And I didn't do it in a way that I would say was designed. Not even designed well, I would just say designed at all, right? It was just, here's these parameters in a box that you can hook cables up to.
Okay.
They sounded great, but they were essentially unusable in the rack context for a variety of annoying reasons. And so we started a project, I think in 2022 we did this, maybe 23, 21, somewhere around there, where we really thought about what it means to be these modules and components and capabilities inside in a modular environment. And we did this beautiful design. I didn't do it. It was done by a couple of other team members did the graphic design, but also the fundamental idea of the modulation matrix, I think, was one that we all brought to rack. And then we just made each item available, or almost every item available. There's a couple of things that we didn't expose out of Surge as components of that modular workflow. And I think that's proven pretty useful. Look, some people still run Surge in the VCV host. You can go buy VCV host, and then it'll run a VST3, and you can just run all of Surge inside it. And I think it's a useful workflow. But for actually taking some of these filters or oscillators or effects or modulators and applying them in a patch with the rest of the ecosystem, which is so robust and enormous, I think it's proven a pretty useful musical tool for many folks.
So how does it work if you have such an idea in the team? If you say, we go now VCV rack, is that then voting and you say, I do the coding, I do the UI, or how does it work?
There's definitely not voting. There's sort of a, like, if someone thinks it's really wrong, we won't do it. Implicit veto, right? Like, oh God, no, we can't do that because, I'll often say, we can't do that because of technical reason X, it'll break A, B, and C, and then it'll fall apart in system D, right? Or, Mario Evil Dragon will say, we can't do that because it'll conflict with this feature in a way that means we're not going to be able to do X, Y, Z anymore. And here's, how synthesizers some users are used to. We have all these conversations like that, right? Or, breaking the tuning workflow, breaking accessibility, all these things, we have people who are looking at it. But honestly, things happen when people do them. And so show up and say you're going to do them and explain what you're going to do and do them most of the time is the way it works. With that, I forget which one of PRC approached me first with an idea for a redesign. No, it was someone was saying, someone said on the VCV rack forum something like, Surge sounds so great, too bad the modules look like shit. They were more polite than that, but that's roughly what they said. And I said something like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't think any of us are going to do a good design for this. Anyone want to do a design for it, hit me up. And then, a couple people hit me up and we did the design, we did the project. Right. So
yeah, that's nice.
Always
so speaking of that, because we were talking before a little bit about that. So you're always open that people come to your project and say, we want to help you. But there are a lot of people, they also say, I'm not a developer, but I would love to contribute a little bit. So there are, I think, a lot of different things people could do, even if they don't know how to spell C or something.
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, so if you take a look at Surge, the instrument, and I'm using the word the instrument on purpose, it contains a variety of things, far more than just the set of code that's there, right? The code, there's really three types of code. First of all, there's DSP code, there's kind of infrastructure and plugin code, and there's user experience, user interface code, right? Those are three different types of, they're all in the same language, but three different types of code. Exactly, right. Here's the person who did the knob and button for OBXF. Exactly. Hey, how are you? The instrument has a signal path and a use case and is tested, and that doesn't require to use code. The system has a manual. It has a website. Those are all things. Well, website is kind of code. But the website is not code in the same way that C++ is code, right? Not to diminish all my friends who are web developers, but
and articles have to be written as well. So
exactly, and people have to go on podcasts and so on and so forth. Yeah. That's not that onerous. I was just joking about that, obviously. And so but we try as hard as we can to be an open contribution project,
Mm.
right? It really is like, hey, let's implement. We need someone to do the graphic design for this. We need someone like the about screen in Surge. A person came by and their contribution was they laid it out in Figma in a way that was beautiful, and now that's the about screen we use on all our platforms, right?
Mm.
And so, like, that's cool. Thanks, right? They didn't write any of the code, but now we have a design language that we use for et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And even if people reading the documentation, they found errors or they want to extend something, they can go to your channels.
Yeah, they can go to our channel to tell us, or they can just go to GitHub and send a change request in. Sometimes we just get people saying, "Oh, I found this typo in your manual, and here's a change."
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
I did that.
Yeah, sorry, that was you. There we go. Thank you. What's this question? I have a question. What made you break the sections apart and make them available in VCV? I mean, seemed like fun. Like,
that's the best reason.
But like the way people use modular environments is different than the way they use instrument environments, and so we thought allowing people to customize the signal path would make it more musically valuable for them. But really, the first thing it did is I wanted the signal path broken apart so I could debug it. Right? There was the FM3 oscillator had a problem that if you let it drone for about 2 or 3 minutes, you started getting high frequency noise. Right. I was like, what the hell's going on with this oscillator? And I just looked at it and I'm like, oh yeah, there's that. And so then you find it, right? Because you can actually take just FM3 alone droned into a scope for 3 minutes and see what's going on. It turns out the answer is it wasn't wrapping phase. And so after enough time, the float lack of precision added a square wave portion to the signal.
Okay. I'm always find this very interesting because if you want to do such things, you need a very proper background, not only in IT but also in DSP processing, I guess. So what's your background that you can do that?
I mean, look, I've been programming, and I think Omri is right. Yes, it was Pierre that approached me with Steve. He put in the comments there. So I've been programming my whole life, right? I think I wrote my first computer program on a Timex Sinclair in 1979, right? when you could get the little chiclet keyboards hooked up to your television computers.
Nice.
10 print hello, 20 go to 10.
And the Christmas tree.
I just made that joke to capture everyone under 40 and see if they don't understand what I'm talking about. I've always loved programming. I studied physics in college, and I ended up doing a PhD in physics. And then but that was very computer heavy as well. I was doing massive simulations and 90s era supercomputing and all that sort of stuff. And then from there went into a career where I took that into some enterprise technology roles where I was doing analytics and programming in that space. And so I've always been involved in analytics, math, computing, programming. I would say my DSP skills are probably mid at best. I've sort of I understood it, and I've, taken basic signals courses and stuff like that. But, when you compare me to the teams at Cytomic or Valhalla or places like that, I'm a just complete rookie, right? I don't know what I'm doing. Or you, right? The people who are doing the real stuff, really, really hardcore stuff. But it's that was cool. And then I had an opportunity in my personal life to spend a bit more time doing hobbies and a bit less time doing work, and that coincided well with Surge being open source. Really, just blind luck that time and Surge being open source happened at the same time, and so I stumbled on it and. And I said, oh, okay. Because otherwise I'd just be writing, my own synth that was weird and no one liked because I don't know how to make a synth and it doesn't do anything and no one uses it, right? It's like, that would be no fun. So that starting point was, I think, an important part of getting me engaged in the projects too. Yeah.
Nice. And it was also just mentioned, what is this OBXF thing?
Oh, sure. Hold on. Let me, where is it? There we go. This. Right. Yes. Exactly. Right. OBXD is a product made by Disco DSP, and they've done, I think, a lovely job with it. There was an open source version of it, and they took a closed source, which they were right to do. But the open source version was essentially lingering in a couple of ways, and so we a group of people around the internet and on KVR were trying to revive it, and so we consolidated those efforts using some of our infrastructure. It's a pretty reasonable version of the open source side of that plugin's history. Sounds good. Uses a reasonably low amount of CPU. We added some features that we had sort of always wanted in the free version. Including one this afternoon when I fixed a problem with init from DAW, as you can see, and we're kind of getting ready to tag that as a 1.0 release. I think there's one issue I need to close for 1.0, but it's a. Hold on, can you screen share me? Can you do that?
Sure. You did hide your email?
Yeah. I'm all good.
Here we are.
Yeah, you can see that now.
Yes.
I mean, look, it's this kind of synth, right? Right. And it does something. Turn the cutoff down, and that goes, et cetera, et cetera. So that's it. And we have new skins, and we've changed the voice manager in a couple of ways, and we've done a lot of the groundwork we need to do to make it MPE aware as well, which we plan to do in the next release. It doesn't have MPE now, but we think we can do it. We have a design for it, and when we reworked, because one of the things we reworked in the voice manager is, let me find it better. You can, if I take this back, you can actually do non-mono unison, right? So if your per voice is below your poly, you can get sharing. And fix some things and added some things and changed some things and just kind of it gave it a little bit of fit and finish in the open source side. And again, look, Disco DSP sells a successor to this as a $50 product, which I think is a great product, and I encourage everyone who wants to support them to go ahead and buy it. I think it's great, but we were interested in the open source side getting a bit of love as well, and so that's what we did on the project.
Nice. It looks nice as well.
Yeah, that was all community contributions in helping us build a skin and modeling it and having a 3D model of it for the website, which I think we still don't have quite live. We have a 3D model, but we don't have the website live yet. And so, again, another good example of community contributions. So let's take me off of the. Let's take me off the.
Sure.
There we go. Yeah. So that's fun, and then. What else do we have going? So I have a 6 Signs as a little synth I released last year that a lot of people really like, which is
2 filters.
Yeah, 2 filters is a fun little project that we were using. And look, a lot of these little side projects I do are using to test things. So we were reworking the API on our filter library because we have all these wonderful filter models, and the API was very 2006-y. And so we were trying to modernize the way that you spoke to the filters, making it easier for more people to write filter code, which we ended up using in Shortcircuit. But I tested it in 2 filters first, which is a little plugin that has 2 filters. It's kind of like it's based on those Moog pedals where you have bandpass filters that you strike with a step sequencer. It's sort of a spiritual successor to that in a way. And 6 Signs is an FM synth that it embraces the fact that everyone knows exactly how to and loves programming FM synths.
Totally.
Nothing's more fun. But for the people who do know how to and love program FM synths, some of them really, really like 6 Signs quite a lot because it has a lot of features that make it a very powerful synth. And I've been using it a lot in my music this year as well.
How did you come to Air Windows Consolidated? I know you use all those plugins in Surge as well.
Sure. So one of the people at the very early stages of Surge said, "Hey, can you do something to make Air Windows compile in a way that such and such?" And I looked at the software and I'm like, "This is a crazy number of plugins." And started interacting lightly with Chris. And then I realized that those plugins could be adapted into Surge, but if you did it by hand, it would kill you. So I wrote a little. I'm going to say this now for everyone here is a programmer. Get ready for this, but it's true. I wrote a Perl script. I'm sorry, but I wrote a Perl script so Chris Johnson, who writes the Air Windows, bangs out an amazing new effect every week, basically. And you should all you should all subscribe to his Patreon and use his effects. He's a great developer and an important part of the open source community. But he also writes incredibly regular code, like a machine, right? Each of his effects is the same, right? Except for the innards of the DSP. Like not the same as in like, it's roughly the same, but the same as in like, I can write a relatively fragile Perl parser for his things and, get them all, extracted into other formats. So I did that for Surge, and we did it for about 40 of the effects. And I realized that I could do it for sort of the whole shooting match. And so, did that, and then made a rack module and a juice module that just rebuild every week. Chris presses a button when he does his release, and GitHub, the squirrels at GitHub go off and do their magic. It's not squirrels; it's just computers. And you end up with all of his effects kind of sitting there in one plugin, which is a mode that some people like.
Yeah.
And he and I have collaborated on a bunch of stuff around it as well, and we have a couple of ideas for this year that I'm not going to bounce on this share on this podcast, because I don't know if we'll actually get around to them. But he and I are kicking around a couple of other things that we could do with that. And so there we go. That's that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. If that would be some possibility for Bitwig as well to open up their grid to such modules, it would be really, really cool.
Yeah, I've asked him a couple of times, can I write stuff for the grid? And you can't today, but I know people have asked him that, and so.
So we need to keep asking.
No, if there's one thing I could tell your entire audience, that pestering developers to do things that they can't do for some good technical reason often doesn't help. And I think there's a pretty robust technical reason why it's actually difficult to make the grid expandable by user plugins. Accepting user plugins gives you a sort of a pane surface that is substantially larger than not, right? Because other people's code affects the quality of your product, right?
Yeah.
If I show short circuit later and it crashes, it will crash logic, right? Well, it'll crash the logic backend, because logic now has process separation, just like Bitwig does. But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
I see. It'll be, it shows up as an error in the DAW for people. So, I understand why they would be reluctant to do that. If you run the wavetable oscillator in Bitwig and you run the wavetable oscillator in Surge, though, they do sound awfully similar. I think there's some commonality behind some of those. At least there was back at version 4 and some of version 5. I know they've been working a lot on the DSP, and we haven't touched that DSP at all in Surge. So,
before we get to the start of the evening, Short Circuit, maybe let's talk a little bit about music. How did you get into music?
Well, I mean, I think I took a piano lesson 2 years before I wrote a computer program, and so you'd think I'd be better at piano. I'm nowhere near as good at piano as I am at computer programming. But I've always been a musician. I've always loved music. And with the current projects I have going, one of my goals for coming out of COVID was to, get in a group of people who stand up together in a room with instruments and play them all at once, right? I almost didn't care what the format was, right? Like, I was pretty sure I didn't want to play in a Zydeco band, but other than that, I think I would have been okay with almost anything, right? Living in New York, it's possible to find creative and interesting people who want to do stuff with you, and so I'm doing that now. But I've always been a musician. I've always played and written, and you can see I have probably a couple of guitars behind me, and there's some basses on that wall, and another bass up there, and a few other things, and piano here that you can see. That are always what I do. And, we've done projects with friends at various intensities over time. This is the current band. Yep. You can see us sitting there on the front porch, looking very, like we were a cool indie band 30 years ago. Is a little bit, but there's a bunch of great guys. Matthew, the guitarist who's standing there, is an incredibly talented guitarist. Brian, in the red shirt, is a singer-songwriter. Jonathan, sitting on the steps next to me, is a drummer, and an incredible drummer. We're doing a recording now, which has me in Logic a lot. You can see I have the 8-channel mixer control surface back here as well. So we're spending a bunch of time doing recording and mixing and editing of a bunch of songs that we've been writing last year, and we're writing new songs for this year as well. We play around New York with a reasonable degree of frequency. And that's while we were in between drummers, there's a couple of acoustic songs that Matt, Brian, and I wrote together that you can go hear on the various platforms.
And you
And
play
so,
the bass in that band? Did I get this right?
So in that band now, I am playing the bass. Yeah, I mean, I play some keyboards on a couple of the tracks in the recording situation, but we set up the band with the band has evolved into the sort of bass, guitar, drums, singer, 3-piece plus singer configuration, right? The sort of classic Led Zeppelin live configuration.
Right.
And so I'm playing bass in that configuration. Yeah. I mean, I love playing bass. Bass is the best instrument.
Interestingly, I also did that. I learned also some years ago with the bass. It's really fun playing bass.
Really, especially if you have a great drummer like Jonathan, who's a great drummer, and when he and I lock in, it's really just fun to play with him. Right?
So sounds like your musical interest is also pretty broad, then.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say so. I mean, I'm like I said, I also play in a much more casual, jazz trio, jazz quartet. Play bass in that, and playing piano and guitar with some folks for fun on all sorts of occasions. But the music you like is partly a function of the music you heard when you were growing up, right? So classic rock through sort of early 2000s indie, right? I won't turn off a Radiohead or a Led Zeppelin album ever, right? I've probably listened to Dark Side of the Moon 1,000 times in my life. But I make it a habit to try to listen to a new release every week, right? Just like, okay, let's go find something that was released this week and listen to it and see if I like it, right? And so then you just like the psychedelic porn crumpets. I don't know if you know this band. They're an Australian band. There's like absolute I was like, okay, what the hell is this? And I'm like, okay, these guys are actually an amazing band and they're really, really fun, right? And you go see people and you go listen to bands and you explore things. And for all the critiques of Spotify and the internet and all these other things, it's made it an incredibly robust environment in which you can explore music, right? Like, you can all go listen to the psychedelic porn crumpets.
Absolutely. That's also something I just realized recently. You can listen to everything, and you should. That's
yes. Yeah. Especially, like I said, the psychedelic porn crumpets. It's a great record.
You're starting to make me curious now.
It's kind of a terrible band name, but a great record. Anyway. So okay, cool. So you want to do a little short circuit time?
Yeah. So what happened this week? The talk of the week was that the Native Instruments is in primary insolvency, and everybody is asking, what about Kontakt? Then is worried that Kontakt might die, and that's always an issue with closed formats. Huh? And maybe we have a solution for you. So Paul has one, and it's
so that is not the introduction I agreed to, by the way. That is the worst possible introduction.
Sorry for that. I had to do it.
So here's 30 years of amazing engineering that has set the standard for an entire industry. Maybe this dude just put something on GitHub that could replace it.
I wanted to bring some positive spirit here into the. Okay, no, for sure, it will surely not be a replacement for the gazillions of libraries available for Kontakt. But if someone is looking for creative samplers or just a real sampler,
yes, that's right. So look, let me first of all fully disavow everything about that. One of our explicit anti-goals in Short Circuit was BiCoTa, right? And so I think goals and anti-goals are super important. And an anti-goal is something that you sort of have as a defining feature of not the project. So the replacement for Kontakt was not it. Let me start here's a short circuit. So what is short circuit? So with Surge, the code that existed at the open sourcing moment actually was pretty robust code. With Short Circuit, after we got Surge back and running, it was clear the community was going to work. I had a long conversation with Claes about whether or not Short Circuit could be open sourced, and his concern was that the code for Short Circuit was not, frankly, in as good a shape as the code for Surge was, and that was true. But he decided to sort of share it with us anyway. But it meant the Short Circuit project, unlike the Surge project at the outset was get this piece of code working. The Short Circuit project at the outset was, here's an inspiration for a sampler, but I think of the code that we have in Shortcircuit as maybe 100 or 200 lines from that original open sourcing. A little bit of the DSP inside the generator code has been untouched, but everything else, about 3 years ago, after sort of playing with what it would mean to continue that code, we sort of decided to almost start again and rescaffold the whole thing. So, we think of it sort of as a logical successor to the Shortcircuit family, and a lot of the design focus in Shortcircuit, which I think is what people loved about it, has carried over. And that design focus really was, it's easy to grab a sample, do some stuff to it, and listen to it in your keyboard.
Could the original Shortcircuit actually do multi-samples, or did it only do one sample?
You could stack multiple groups and multiple zones.
Okay.
So it had some limits to that hierarchy, but it could do that. But here, let me show you. I've got I should have thought a little bit more about this. And also give me 1 second. Yeah. Okay. So let me just do this. Let me grab. What do I want to grab? Here, I'm going to grab this. Let's see. Right. So this is. Right. There's a sample that I dragged in, right? And so now if I press that plays. And so now we can get into the idea of the Shortcircuit architecture, right? We've got a browser over here. You can add favorites to this for your things. We have an area where you're showing zones and how they're mapped. And then we have here a set of processors, a set of modulation tools. And over here, we have groups and zones. We'll talk about that in a second. But what I've done is I've set up a zone, and this zone is just simple playback. Right? And if I play it an octave up or an octave down, right? So that is very basic sampler stuff. And we then have, an array of things we can do to it. Like I can go grab, I'll go grab this one, right? So this is a frequency shifter that's based on sort of ring modulation, and it's got, if I start adding feedback to it, right? Right. So now all of a sudden we're starting to get, the ability to really make a distortion to this. But I can also grab an LFO down here. Again, I'm going to have to make it a little smaller again. I thought I had rebuilt before I did this demo, by the way, so I could get 110, but I can't. I'm going to grab a step sequencer down here, right? I'll just draw a little thing in here, and I could do other things. I'm going to say now LFO1 applies to the processor's course with some depth, and then so now we're starting to get, let me turn that depth up a little. Okay, I'm starting to get the ability to really make modulated differences to the sound. And similarly, I can take a filter here, right? I'm going to just put where's the filters? I'll take a really simple filter, and I'll grab this second envelope here, and I'll give it a medium decay, big sustain. I'll take cranked down low pass filter, and then take the envelope generator, attach it to the filter, P2 fast SVF cutoff, set that nice and high, and right. And so you can see now we start getting so that's kind of fun. And I can similarly go up here. Let me take this bass cut up a little higher so it keeps playing through. I can go out here and add a loop, right? I'm going to put the loop over this note. Right, let's go here and zoom in a little so I can get that a little tighter. Right, now if I go back here, you can kind of hear that in the background, but because my cutoff is too low, I'll turn this cutoff up a bit, right? And so now I've got sort of, a totally different sound. And then, you know, I can go, oh, that's why this didn't work. Let me put LFO1 here and then assign that to the cutoff. Right. And so like that's cool, right? And that's even just with one zone, the sort of things you can start doing, right? We can stack zones and do all sorts of stuff, but then we can go out here. The hierarchy you have in Shortcircuit is you have a part, which is kind of an instrument. It contains groups. Each group contains zones.
One question maybe before you go into that area, if you go back.
Yeah.
How does it work? I did not fully get that. That you make settings on a node basis. So, for example, envelope on a filter.
Yes. So what I did is I set up. We have a bunch of envelopes down here. I set up this envelope to no delay, no attack, no hold, longish decay, no sustain. Right? So here's that envelope. And what I did is I said, in the mod matrix, this envelope, EG2, applies to the processor fast SVF's cutoff with a depth. Right? So there's the modulation, right?
But that's always restarted the envelope then for each node.
Yes, so in this case, the zones are fully polyphonic. So each filter and each node is per voice, right?
Okay.
So
that's something I did not get. Yeah. So the effects are always per voice.
Well, so the zone effects are per voice. The group and part effects are per bus, right? So here, like, so now I've set it so the filter fades out pretty fast, right? So if each node has its own filter doing that decrease, right? And even though they're still running there, they're now at the bottom of the filter cutoff. That's why I turned it up. But if I went instead out here to the group, now where we're in the group, the group has the sum of all the voices. So if I apply, let's say I apply, I'm going to apply some saturation here. It's under distortion. I'm just going to, here's all the Surge wave shapers, and I'll just grab the OJD wave shaper, right? So now, right? And this has a high cut on it. Let me turn that. Right, so now that high cut's down, I can now take an LFO here in the group. I'm just going to set this to a simple saw, okay? And now, if in the group, I take the group LFO and apply it to the group processor's high cut, there it is, right? And you see that syncs across all the voices, right? So even if the voices trigger independently, there's a monophonic group associated with it, right? And so that's a little, so I probably want to make that unipolar, so it goes up from there, right? Right. And then I could bring the base of the high cut up.
It's kind of similar to the Surge scene modulator.
It's exactly right. There's a Surge scene modulator as well, right? And I could even apply it separately to the drive, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I can do all sorts of things. The mod matrix is incredibly deep. But now, you know, we'll get.
And what I saw, you can also change the linearity of the how it works on the.
You can on each sample. You mean?
No, on each modulation there on the right side of where your mouse now is. No. On the right side, the next field. Yeah, there.
Oh yeah, exactly. There's curves in the way. You can also do a product of things, right? So if I don't have a mod wheel at this piano, but if I did GLFO1 via mod wheel, what would happen is the mod wheel would then control the intensity of that automatically. It would be the sum of them, right? And then similarly, just like we'll have groups and zones inside parts, parts eventually go to buses. You have a full mixer in here for the multi-timbral experience, right? But if we go back over here to the edit screen, I can go ahead and grab a delay, right? So, so now, right? So, and then, you know, take this delay, turn the feedback up, go over here to the group. I'm going to change this. Ready? I'm going to make, sorry, they did M instead of uni. I'll make that unipolar. And I'll now deform this. See, now this curve is like that. I make it go a little faster, right? Right? So So I don't know if that's musically useful in this case, but it is an example.
Useful for
Well,
one genre.
Exactly right. So if someone wants to make a piece of music out of this, hit me up on Discord because I'll buy you a beer in your local currency. But it gives you kind of an example of this sort of single sample workflow that we've spent a bunch of time on, right? And so this is one of the workflows inside the tool that we think is pretty powerful. And also, you can do the whole thing without a sample at the beginning. One of the jokes we had in the team was, we swear it's a sampler, right? So I can go ahead and
I saw that and I was wondering, but I didn't dig in there. Yeah.
Okay. This zone has no sample. Okay. Right, because what we have is one of the processors is actually an oscillator, right? So here's an oscillator, which is a virtual analog model, and this is actually a new piece of DSP that we wrote with a library from Signalsmith, who's has some really great open source libraries. But now, right? So there we go. But I can go and replace the fast SVF, which is this was actually a filter contributed from some research that Cytomic did in 2013. They published it, and we've used it all over the place. But here's now the feature from OBXF, right? Okay, and then let me turn the cutoff down. Right, so.
Wow.
Right. And so now, okay, cool. Let's do the same thing, right? Let's go here and grab a sample and hold. A sample and hold running relatively quickly, and we'll apply LFO. That's LFO1, right? LFO1 to the cutoff with some medium depth, and now you get right. And so that's like a sample-free workflow, and we have a bunch of things. We have a stripped down. We have this virtual analog oscillator, which is a bunch of waveforms and has actually a really clean implementation of oscillator sync as well, right? So hold on. Let me assign. Excuse me for a second.
I think a lot of people now sitting in front of the computer, totally like on Christmas under the Christmas tree and just smiling and being happy.
Yeah, exactly. So right, because here we go. I'll grab a second oscillator. I'll set it to a sine wave. I'll apply that second LFO to the sync of the virtual analog. I'll put the level up some. Right. Right, so et cetera, et cetera. And if I want to see what it's like without one of these, I'll turn that down. I'll turn this rate up a little. Right, so
Nice.
Right, so there's a sort of oscillating sync sweep, right? I probably want to make this unipolar as well, and take the sync down, so we push up the sync from there, right? Right, and this is before we even go ahead and put in like any of our crazy physical modeling things after the fact, like static phasers and like all the, and you can also mix and match these. Like, see, there's this routing down here. So if I go to serial 2, I'm going to move the filter. Let's actually go to let's go to serial 3. I'm going to move the filter over to position 4. I'm going to move one analog here, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to add generators. Let me add a string oscillator here. Right.
So I guess that answers the question here, if there are creative modes as well as granular engine and stuff like that.
So there's no granular engine yet. But so now you can start sort of mixing and matching this flow, right? So this is why I said don't think contact replacement first. No,
it's more. It's definitely more.
Also, it's So I think look. There's a bunch of great software out there. There's the whole SFZ community. There's the Decent Sampler folks. There's Bitwig Multisample, right? There's Contact. There's Falcon. These are all pieces of software that we took inspiration from. The built-in samplers in each of the DAWs. right? Those are things that we thought about when we were doing some of this
Mm.
design work. But it's look, you still can go, like if I go over here to my tests, I think I have an SF2 folder, right? So like here's a bunch of sound fonts. So I can just crack open this sound font, and I can't just go and grab the whole sound font, and then I get, whatever. That was a bad example. Let me choose a different one. Sorry. Here's a harpsichord sound font. And you see it has 3 instruments inside it and a bunch of samples, right? Or I can go grab this one. Let's see. I'm going to have to, excuse me for being blind. The computer's too far away. I really should have done the build, so I had the 110% here request in here we got from GitHub. But I'm doing all the sound font work. But we can take a look. Like there's some big sound fonts. Let me go down here. Right, so there's that one. Right, so nylon and steel guitars actually has 4 different instruments inside it, right? So and I can go grab this one, pull it out, and now I get. So sort of that standard workflow works, which is nice. But if I want to, automatically it's cracked my sound font, so I can just go grab this sample as a standalone sample, right? And that's not a very good choice. But then I can go ahead and start the same workflow that I used when I was using it as a complete instrument, right? So we really thought about SF2 and SFZ and gig and EXS. I have an EXS based on your software, Jürgen, that I don't think I have turned on, but gets us a bunch of the way there. With things. This is the Bitwig user group. I think I have. This is all the Bitwig factory content, right? So, I can go ahead and if I found my way to a multi-sample here, which is probably in sampler instruments, right? This is the Logic stuff. Do I have this turned on? Oh yeah, look, I do have EXS support turned on. So here's a Logic instrument. All right, so I don't have it turned on fully yet. That Logic instrument I can crack apart in the same way. I can probably pull it out though. Let's see what happens if I do that. A second. Yeah, look. So there we go. It loaded this.
So you can load multi-samples from Bitwig and Logic and all this?
I just loaded a multi-sample from Logic. Yeah, exactly. That's an EXS file that I loaded. Right.
You can load EXS, SFZ, SF2.
EXS, SFZ, SF2, multi-sample, and Giga Studio. We have some light support for Akai. We haven't finished EXS yet because I can't open it up and grab a single sample. I can only grab the whole instrument. And I think we'll probably do Decent Sampler eventually as well. Although Decent Sampler is more often just a directory.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, we're also thinking about doing SFZ exports, so you could model some stuff here and then at least get your zones and samples exported.
Nice.
Too. In the future. And look, there's a million things I haven't touched on, right? Like I didn't even touch on this. The whole thing is multi-timbral, and you can run it with, different outputs into your DAW. It has a 20 out version, so you can route individual groups to different parts. There's a play screen with macros that are controllable at the edge, and they all participate in the mod matrix. There's a bunch of stuff like that, right?
How do you assign the macros? Yeah. Is it a learn or something, or do you need to put them in the matrix?
Yeah, you put them in the matrix. Exactly. So the macros are just sort of 16 VST edge point entry points, right? That you use to actually 16 times 16, so whatever that is, 256 edge points. And they have names and features, but then you use those in the matrix to go ahead and control stuff, right?
I was really blown away yesterday, Paul, when I opened this. I expected somehow a really simple sampler, and this is insane. Well, in a good way. In a good way.
Yeah. So here, let's take it off the screen and go back to video. Thank you. There's a million things that we want to do still. And one of the reasons that we called it beta on Friday, a couple of reasons we called it beta on Friday. One of them is eventually you just have to pick a day and say it's beta, damn it. Otherwise it never becomes beta, right? But I think several of us felt that the alpha label was scaring people off of its stability because it's pretty stable. We've figured out how to make a streaming stable. We haven't had crash reports in months. It loads and plays stuff. And then we would find out through that process the things that we had got wrong that wasn't in the sort of narrower community testing set. As I mentioned in the time before, we found out yesterday when we did the beta that we'd set it up in a way that in some situations, Live wouldn't load it on Windows. And so I fixed that yesterday afternoon, 15 hours after the beta launch. So sorry if you tried this on Live yesterday. First of all, you should upgrade to Bitwig. It's an interesting experience, and this is a Bitwig product. Sorry to all my friends at Live, but you got to talk the house team a little. But also you should go grab the latest nightly, because that'll fix your Windows Ableton problem. But also, look, we're getting pretty interesting inbound about what things people are finding clumsy that we didn't feel clumsy, so we can make sure we set our priorities correctly. We have a bunch of multi-group editing gestures in there, but one of the multi-group editing gestures we didn't have in there was changing the size of 7 groups coherently. You had to change the size of groups individually, zones, I mean, sorry. And so I've spent, actually I was writing it this morning. We have a test branch now for Andrea and Mario to test. But, things like that are making it up the stack pretty quickly. One of the things that we had as an unimplemented feature was an on-release play for the sample. And, I just hadn't got around to coding it yet, but it was one of the things people asked for in the first 3 hours of using the thing. And so, we're really hoping, look, it really is community effort in Surgeland. So we're really hoping that people choose to play with this and let us know what they think, and jump on our Discord or send messages in our GitHub, and offer constructive feedback in a pleasant and friendly way about what they would like to see.
Is there an easy way to zoom in this arrangement of key groups?
Yeah, sure. Hold on a second. So actually, this is one of the mild problems we have, is that everything works perfectly with a Mac trackpad.
Oh, okay.
If you don't have a Mac trackpad, I think it works. But so I can do all these gestures. Right?
Ah, okay. So
right.
Yeah, and how does
that's the pinch gesture, and then there's a gesture for zooming velocity as well. I just don't remember what it is.
And do you know how it works?
Sorry. Yeah, right.
How it works on Windows? What do you?
I have it mapped to the wrong thing on Windows, I remember, and we have an open issue about it. I should fix that with I should actually push that up. I think I did Control Alt mouse wheel or something insane like that, and everyone who's a Windows user is like, no, of course it's Shift F7 mouse wheel or something. And I'm like, sorry. I'm like, this is why I have a trackpad. But so look, so blind spots like that are definitely things that I expect us to fix in this first week of the beta, right? And similarly, the sample zoom, all works beautifully. This is just me using the trackpad gestures.
Right.
But I think I have the wrong gesture bound on Windows for that as well. There is an issue about that in the GitHub, and you are making me think I should have that one also be high on the list. Although it would make me have to boot into Windows, and that always makes me a little sad. Yeah. All right. So that's Short Circuit.
Yeah. There were some more questions. Let's have.
Okay. Yeah. Let's
see. All right. Let's first switch back to here, and I guess I need to show it again. Here we go.
Is it possible? So the answer to that question is no. Asterisk. If your sample has embedded slice points in it, they will show up in the editor so that you can pull your start and end points to it, and there'll be snap points for all the gestures for start, end, and loop. But we don't have a transient detector or an auto slicer. And also the mod matrix to playhead stuff is pretty underdeveloped. So a lot of the sort of super glitchy workflows that I think the Ableton sampler gives you are things we don't have in the tool now. Things we want to do, but you just have to make a priority list.
Yeah, it's only a few features in it. So
look, instead of granules, can you split one sample into many independent zones and filter them independently? Yes. How many zones are possible? How much RAM do you have? The answer to that question really is, I've tested the scale. I did a scaling test before we betaed it, where I put, a couple of thousand zones on top of each other, and it, with a release build, it did playback okay if those were zones were, the zone resolution is what you start worrying about, right? So but I think many things will start falling over at 100 or 120 voices on my laptop, and so obviously if you're having all those voices be simultaneous with filters and you chose that strategy, that would probably start crushing your CPU. But setting up independent zones is pretty straightforward. And if you're thinking about doing this with 10 zones, I think that's fine. We also do have a sample start point modulation source, so you could bind a random to a start point to kind of get that going. And we have some retrigger capabilities. I want to add a sample restart from start trigger capability of the matrix as well over the next couple of weeks. So I think you could probably do fake granular or doing something like that. But I would like to add a real granular one day as well, as I know with the rest of the team.
Nice. So if there are more questions, just feel free to ask them. Okay, we will see.
So by the way, an Omni there is referring to yes, I know. Maybe it's a good time to have an auto sampler for VCV. I know. He and I talked about that in the past and had done more than talk about it as well. But maybe it is a good time to finish that project. If you have good GitHub sleuthing skills, then maybe you could even have an auto sampler in your VCV. But only in that case.
Really cool. So that would have been also my question. Well, what is how many features are from Surge taken into?
So one of the things that we did, and this is one of the things I was pretty excited about. It was actually a conversation I had with Al, who's at Waves, and with another developer who made a comment like, Surge is cool because it's an instrument, but if you were doing open source, wouldn't you be writing libraries that other people could use to do DSP anyway, right? It's something like that. And it was a positive statement, like, here's another way you can contribute, not like, why are you doing it wrong? It was, I said it in a negative statement, it was a positive statement. And it made me think. And so one of the things we've done over the last 3 or 4 years is really decompose Surge into constituent libraries that can be used in any contexts. So like the delay that you saw in Shortcircuit is exactly the delay that's in Surge 1.3, right? It's the same piece of code, right? All the voice effects we wrote here, we wrote them in a way that they're not actually in the Shortcircuit code base. They're in a separate code base that Shortcircuit consumes, so that all of those voice effects, like there's micro gates and all those other things, I could just project those all into rack modules one day if I wanted to, right? So we thought very hard about that. And essentially what's ending up starting to happen is that actually, can we go back here? Let me show you 2 filters.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go back to the
Sure.
screen. Yeah, hold on. Let's so I have here a Surge. Let me turn off 2 filters for a second, right? Let me this is one of Jackie's patches, I think. Let me take give it a bit more attack. Right. Right, so there's my Surge patch. And what I've done on the back of it is put my 2 filters. Okay, so 2 filters is this cool little plugin that really has 2 filters. And so what's happening is you're going through here and you've got these step sequences that can modulate them. So now if I play that, right? Because what I'm doing is, controlling the filter resonance and cutoff with this. And so and this is actually a super fun way to add texture to guitars and stuff, right? Right. But the reason I wrote this is one of the side quests. This is we decided to have this be a baconpaul thing as opposed to a Surge Synth Team thing for a variety of reasons. But the primary reason I wrote this is this idea of exploring all of our filters, all of our models, in a cleaner way. Having this code be easy to write was actually quite a bit of work, and we didn't have sort of a candidate for it, right? So you can see we have all of the things here. But like if I go to the OBXD expander, one of the things we did in OBXF is we added all these sort of weird notch and phase filter types, right? So now, right, you're getting these sort of like phasers and as we crank the resonance.
Yeah, Cork did just
Right.
a plugin like this where you have 4 filters. So this is looks more powerful even. They have much more.
Well, right. So, but the point of this is not so much that it's a cool plugin. Although it is a cool plugin. I've been using it in my music a lot lately, and I enjoy it. And I think the sort of the discipline of only having 2 modulation sources that are step sequencers and only 2 filters, and just having the stereo field and feedback and noise and the source is an interesting palette. But the primary reason that we put it together was to test this idea that our filters actually are just a library anyone can consume and write a plugin, right? And so this filter code is the exact same filter code that's running in Shortcircuit, is the exact same filter code that's running in Surge. And it's all available to anyone as a GPL header-only library that they can use in their programs as well if they're willing to comply with that license, right? And so and so some of our code is MIT, some of our code is GPL. There's a mix based on its provenance. And MIT is easier for closed source programs to use. But and that's all I'm going to say about licensing. But the idea that we don't just copy stuff from Surge to Shortcircuit, that we put it in a third place and then make both of them clients of that third place has been one of our driving principles in the project.
Is there also the idea to do it the other way around, to have the Shortcircuit sampler as an oscillator in Surge?
Yeah. So So first of all, here let's go back so I can the Shortcircuit sampler isn't an oscillator. The Shortcircuit sampler is an entire universe of zone management, note management, voice management, sample loading, zone resolution, all those types of things, and those are really heavy duty features. The DSP that takes a wave file and sends it out to your speaker is DSP that we could share. That's not going to be the same as like what Serum 2 did with SFZ support inside Serum, though. And I don't see us doing that with Surge anytime soon. I think it's more likely that all of the missing oscillators from Surge making it a Shortcircuit, right? So like here's a great example. So like we integrated a mutable clouds with Surge. That's now available in Shortcircuit as well. So, one of the primary reasons to have mutable clouds is so you can run samples to it and do weird stuff. Right. And so, putting that in Shortcircuit seems more natural. So, I think we're thinking about it a little differently, that each of sort of the landmark properties has features that it has. And Surge is not a sampler and Shortcircuit is a sampler at least. I was going to say not a synth, but that's obviously false from the demo I just gave. Right?
Yeah. Great. So, wow. I guess everybody's gone now and looking into all those cool open source tools. I also want to do that, I feel. I saw just that Pete is in the chat as well. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Pete. Hi, Pete.
Yeah. Pete, we want to
we
want to have you on the show as well. Don't be shy.
Yes.
I got to say, if you really want excellent American coffee discourse, getting Pete on your show is really worth it. He and I have locked minds on Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay, yeah, I heard that. I listened to that episode as well. Yeah.
It's more that we both know if you want to troll an Australian, tell them that Dunkin' Donuts is good coffee.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, look. So look, let me just add one more thing as well, right? Which is I'm sitting here doing this podcast and doing this demo. But look, this has been a massive effort by lots of people, right? And I named some of them, but I certainly didn't name all of them, right? And you mentioned earlier, maybe we should get Mario on this, a future version of this podcast. I think it'd be interesting to hear his takes.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the other sort of little secret it's a bad secret since I'm pretty open about it. Other little secret project that inspired me with the Surge Synth Team is, can you actually run a sort of semi unmanaged kind of collective that does something that people like for the good of humanity with no money in it, right? Again, the answer is you kind of can. And so so it turns out the other thing you learn when you release a piece of software is just how small some people's laptop screens are. We added some more zoom levels to our Shortcircuit overnight. I thought I had that in the version I just built for you there, but apparently I didn't make it. And so that team effort, it's sort of why it's enjoyable, first of all. Right. Like a group of people get together on the internet and don't scream at each other is a rarity nowadays. And instead do something constructive that people enjoy that leads to them making some music. And I love hearing the music people make with these things. Sometimes I'll listen to music, I'm like, wow, that's like incredible. So like the Shortcircuit release video, the piece of music that Andrea made for it was, I think, a beautiful piece of music as well as a good demonstration of the synth, right? You love hearing these things, and it exposes me to sort of composition styles and pieces of music and things I'd never thought of as I listen to the way people push these tools around. So it's really a fun project.
Yeah, maybe there are two things where we could also have a slight touch on it. So one thing is the accessibility. The other one is that, I need to look up that complicated name. How is it called? MTS ESP.
Oh, sure. MTS ESP is not complicated.
That? But the name, maybe.
MTS, the original MTS, the MIDI tuning standard, was part of the 1984 the MIDI spec, where you could send a, I guess it was 14-bit, so 0 through 768 retuning for each key on your keyboard.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and it's how you did a sort of manual tuning of like old Yamaha hardware synths and stuff like that. MTS ESP is a piece of software that was developed, I think, about 5 years ago, with the idea that it would help wrangle the complexity in doing microtonal composition in electronic instruments. Right, and the primary complexity in there, well, there's a couple of types of complexity. First of all, many instruments don't support microtonality. They're locked into the sort of, post 1850s idea that all pianos are tuned to equal temperament. But secondly, even if you have instruments that do, each one expresses it in a different way. You have to load this file here. You have to set up this thing there. Blah 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 blah. And so what the MTS ESP team did was put forward a proposal, which was pretty widely adopted. And Surge was the free synth that implemented it on launch day as well. We were there since the launch of it. To have inside your DAW project a sort of plugin which managed your tuning, and then all the other plugins are clients of it. So you can set up a session where you've got, Piano Tech and Surge and Shortcircuit, and each of them follows the same tuning protocol. So if you decide you want to compose in a 19-tone scale as opposed to a 12-tone scale, or you want to use, some historical scale from history, historical scale from history, you can go ahead and do that. And the other nice thing about the protocol that they put forward is they did the protocol and they had a source for these tunings as well, but anyone else can be a source as well. So there's been proliferation of sources. In fact, you saw in the Shortcircuit launch video, there's this little clip of a tuning matrix, which is a just intonation tuning traversal matrix that Andrea primarily has been working on with me and some of the other team members to allow you to do sort of 12-note JI tuning across all your instruments as an MTS source. So this is all just re-acronyming it. Basically, MTS means if you don't use equal temperament tuning, you can go ahead and do that. Pete chimes in with the point I was just about to make as well. Thank you, Pete. Which is, if we actually get MIDI to UMP, and we get the full set of note expressions, and the plugin standards allow us to actually see that as opposed to hiding it behind some convoluted idea of what we think MIDI 2 should be instead of just giving us the damn packet, then we should have, and the DAWs support it, and the OSs support it, and so on and so forth, then we'll be able to express this in the instrument stream in a much more natural way. And I think that's pretty exciting. If you listen to the other podcasts we were talking about where I was on with Pete, I'm very excited for what the sort of depth of note expression in MIDI 2 is, and been doing some, wrote a little clap that did that with one of the few DAWs that actually supports it a little while ago. You can do some amazing stuff, much more robust than note expressions, much more robust than the MTS standard, and in some ways more robust than clap polyphonic modulation, but in one other way, there's a little gap still as well. And so I think it's pretty exciting if we actually get MIDI 2 on the back half of this decade, what it'll do for us.
So maybe a shout out, since we mentioned that a couple of times now. It's a DAW Bench radio show, which is even much nerdier as we get here. So check that out. There's an even more in-depth interview with Paul as well, but also many other good interviews. We really like the show.
Yeah.
So sorry, Odo, you wanted to ask something?
No. I was
you-
just summing up. Like it's a global tuning system for your DAW.
Yeah, sorry, I should have just said that. It's a global tuning system for your
Yeah, yeah.
DAW. If your plugins support it, and plugins can support it easily.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yes. Sorry, that was much better than the 5.5 minutes of me
No.
talking.
No. I missed all the details. It just comes up like so if somebody was completely lost because of all the details. I really find interesting. So
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and Pete points out as well, MIDI, congratulations on that, by the way, Pete, that MIDI 2 started shipping last week.
Okay.
And so good. So all the OSs have it now. And so now
Not
the
yet.
DAWs
I
and
have
the
a
DAW,
question for that for Pete. So I have now updated this version, but I understood it needs to be activated by Microsoft somehow first, because the tool you released did not give me.
Why don't we take that offline and not have the asynchronous support for MIDI 2 with Pete over the YouTube channel comments? Maybe we can ask him in his Discord,
maybe.
perhaps. Unless it's an easy answer.
I
Pete,
guess
is there
it's
an easy answer to the question?
I guess the answer is wait.
Yes or no?
Yes or no?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just curious.
Yeah. Anyway, but look, back to the point, which MIDI 2 being everywhere will be fantastic, and it'll, the thing I said at the beginning of the Clap project is establishing standards takes 5 years to a decade, right? It takes 38 days for full enablement. We enable 50% at first, but agree didn't want to change your show. Okay, thank you, Pete. It takes 5 to 10 years to change the course of an industry as unorganized and disparate as this one, right? And so MIDI 2, I think, will take a while, but now that it's in all the operating systems, the reasons to not do it are dropping away. And I hope the plugin APIs get it right. I know Clap has just made a decision to have an API where you just get the UMP stream, and parsing a UMP stream is just easy. There's software out there that does it. Just show me what the instrument's sending me. But DAWs and plugin standards have this commitment to non-transparent MIDI that has always perplexed me. Right? Try and do a channel filter in live, and you'll be upset. Right?
Nice.
Okay. Oh, and accessibility. Accessibility. Yeah. So look, the accessibility is an important part of our journey with Surge, and will be with Short Circuit. The accessibility in the Short Circuit beta, I think, is well, we know it's below where is needed for a blind user to use it. But with Surge, we spent a lot of time on it, and I think there's a hierarchy of work that was done before us. The operating systems. Mac OS and Windows have great accessibility layers and are tailored for blind users in many ways. Linux, a bit different. We'll leave that aside. And then the DAWs, especially Reaper, but increasingly Live, have been adding features to their DAWs that allow access for screen readers and other assistive technologies. And then the Juice team added support for the accessible object model to Juice. And so we used that to light up all of Surge in a screen reader. And so as a result, we have users who are making incredible music and patches with Surge who don't have monitors on their computers. Right.
Well, what are some because I can see, my imagination of what are the main obstacles, how you do that, what do you have to do that it's screen reader readable?
So the first thing I would say is, if you do it and you're not actually working with the user who uses these assistive technologies in their workflow, you're going to get it wrong. So find testers and collaborators, right? The group of people who stepped up to who help Surge become the way it is was enormous. We have a group of contributors and testers who have been really helpful with the project in that regard. Then it's basic stuff. If you don't have a screen, you're not using a mouse, because how are you going to know where to click, right? So keyboard gestures matter a lot. Tab order matters a lot. The name of items matters a lot, right? You have to make sure each of your controls is named, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so then you just kind of have to go through and think, okay, what's the real trick I found once you'd sort of started understanding the tools, and once you had a test group together, to sort of step one is, what's the logical thing we're trying to communicate with this user experience, and how does that happen if you're doing it with the tab key, the enter key, the function keys, and it telling you where you are in the UI. And then you do that and you give it to some users, and it's nowhere near good enough because you've missed 38 things because you're secretly using your eyes on the screen still. And so that's why that testing cycle is so important. But look, I've been part of the team that's written the most effective synth for blind microtonalists in the world, and that's sort of super niche, but like it's kind of cool. Like
someone has to do it.
There's obviously a little bit of self-deprecating humor in the size of that audience, and we'll say hi to them. We have a pretty big blind user base now, and Surge is one of the things that allows individuals to make electronic music in their tools. The Reaper team's done a lovely job with it as well, right? So there's plenty of other people who are doing it, and increasingly more plugins now that Juice has done it are getting the tool set in place, both free and closed source, which is great.
I always loved it. Sorry, I always loved it because I'm working on Linux, and I always love to have like shortcuts for everything, So that's why I'm always searching for how can I just not touch my mouse.
Yes. Well, so Surge has all those key gestures turned on Linux. The screen reader support on Linux it couples you to libraries that are difficult to use inside a plugin. Is the longer version of that I'll give. But the shorter version of that doesn't work for plugins, right? And so I gave the longer version in case there's a Linux developer who would like to get in an argument, which is not something I'm going to do. Right? But yeah, so like hold on, let's see. Just give me a second. Let's go back here. Can you cut to my screen again? Sure. Okay, so here is Surge, and here's a little trick. If you press Shift and hold the menu button, you get this additional menu somewhere. Do you not get it in? I thought it was Shift and mouse. We don't put it on in the release builds. You can find the developer builds. The debug builds have a developer menu that let you see a focus debugger, so you can know where you are. But if I click here, look, all these Shift F10 should do it right. Oh no, sorry, I have keyboard. Sorry, it's not going to work in Logic for me to show you what I want to show you now. But if I fired up CLion and ran a dev build, I could show you how you can see the focus debugger and how the mouse follows focus and how all that works. And then I could even turn on the screen reader for you, and you could go ahead and hear Surge speaking about itself, right? In fact, hold on. Let me see if I can do that. Let me start the standalone quickly. Sorry. Right. This may not work.
What are we trying?
So I'm going to turn on VoiceOver. Excuse me. Did you hear? Did you hear that? You heard that, right? Okay. So right. So as I press Tab.
It's very low volume, but you can hear definitely something.
Right. And so you can see now what I'm doing is you can see what I'm doing is I'm moving around, and it's telling me what the things I'm on are, and it's letting me edit them, right? Right. And I can go Shift F10. Shift F10 is sorry. Right.
Yeah, for everybody who cannot hear it, it reads what's basically on the knob, but maybe
right. So I don't know if you heard any of that coming through the channel, right? But essentially what ends up happening is all those text prompts that were on my screen were actually being spoken to my headphones as well. And I don't know if I hope they came through to you too. But you saw, I was using the mouse and moving around and getting it speaking to me what I was doing and doing all those edits without having to touch the mouse at all. And then also realizing that the Bluetooth keyboard I have down here is not giving me function keys for some reason, irritatingly. And so I had to reach up to my laptop. Excuse the bad ergonomics there.
It's really interesting. I also worked with accessibility in my normal work, and it's really crazy if you watch people who use screen readers, how fast it's read. It's unbelievable to understand as a non-blind person, but it's great.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, look.
I was
anything else you want to cover?
Maybe you mentioned Juice. I was just curious how this works. So, Juice announced that they will support Clap natively somehow. Maybe, hopefully, not in the too far future. But how does it work with the different plugin standards? Is it the least common denominator, or how do you address specific features like the threading stuff, for example, with Clap?
Look, I've been talking to the Juice team about the way that we wrote the Clap Juice extensions as well, and I think that will help inform them for their next release. I think you're right that a critique of Juice as it stands today is it is a little bit least common denominator. The way I avoided that in the Clap Juice extensions was I gave you get out of jail free specializations that you could do to your least common denominator class. And so your least common denominator class can decorate itself with additional interfaces. But then the clap adapter will search for, and it kind of fall down the waterfall back to the lowest common denominator interface. I don't know if that's how they're going to do the support in Juice 9, but I've been in touch with the team and I talked to them. I'd like them, do a bunch of work with them. I think I've signed the CLA and even sent a bug fix into Juice, right? So on good terms with them and talking to them about how that could work. And Chetan and I, who wrote the Clap Juice adapter, told them both that they can take the entirety of that code. We're happy to assign it to them as a part of their exploration of how to do it. So I'm confident that Juice 9 Clap support will be fun and awesome.
Do you have an idea when they will release it somehow?
I am not going to give a date for someone else's project when they have not.
I see.
Because I am a nice person and not a monster.
I had to try. Okay,
but they announced it for the next version that it's integrated.
They've announced it. They've announced it for Juice 9. It's on their Juice 9 roadmap, and I talked to Simon Rubens as well about it.
Okay, maybe something fun for the ending of the show. There was also the NAMM show, and I don't know if someone has noticed there was a kind of food battle called the Hugo, and it's actually also running Bitwig. And I found this quite funny. So it's basically a computer, I guess, running into this housing with lots of connectivity at the back and a touchscreen on top. And there is an example where it also runs Bitwig, and it looks quite big if you look at that.
That looks a lot larger than my laptop.
I was wondering the same thing. Yeah, that's really interesting. But it's as a pedal board. I don't know.
Because of the buttons, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So it's announced as a pedal board. Yes.
Yeah. What?
I don't know. Yeah, that's exactly.
If it's. So I don't know anything about this project, but part of me certainly thinks that if it's at my feet and I'm playing in a rock band, it will get beer spilled on it, right? And so
as usual, yeah.
So the comment finally legit reason to stomp on the computer.
Exactly. I've been waiting 50 years to find one, and now I have it. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I just thought that would be interesting to mention for the Bitwig group, that you can run now Bitwig on a pedal board as well. And we also had Bitwig 6, another beta. We have now number 13. We're doing now beta cycle for half a year. So
by the way, it's an inspiration of the Shortcircuit betas as well. I think they'll take about the same amount of time.
It's ready when it's ready. But I have to say I like this because it changed, still on the way, lots of stuff because of user commands. And especially I just did a video about automation, and you did also a stream testing out the automation auto, which
Yeah.
really shows that they thought a lot about how to do that and changed it quite a bit again.
Look, writing a DAW is impossibly hard. Writing a DAW that's as detailed and integrated with a composer and sound design workflow as Bitwig is. Logic is a DAW, Bitwig is an instrument,
Yeah.
right? And it's a remarkably difficult and ambitious thing they're trying to do. So, I think it's a wonderful piece of software and a great team.
Absolutely. And what I really love was, last year they did, was it last year? They did the overhaul with the graphic engine. This was a big thing, I think. And now they did a lot of about the workflow and everything. And that's something I really love. Maybe others are not that happy because there are not so many new instruments and stuff, but they did a lot stuff. And even the last with the 13, I think there was something like automation polymeter feature. I just looked at it for half a day and thought, okay, that's maybe what they did.
Yeah. And as one of the comments said, it's finally nice that the Bitwig chat has a Bitwig on it. and the reason for why do you see Logic and not Bitwig is because as much as I love Bitwig and the Bitwig team and use it for some things, including development, my DAW of choice is still Logic, a habit that will die hard.
He said it.
No,
I do a lot of multi-track audio workflow. Right.
Yeah, I also use Reaper and sometimes Cubase, so it's totally fine with me.
Yeah.
We're open to everything because every workflow is different, and sometimes you need different workflows, and there are different tools better than the others, or more suitable. Let's say this. Better is always like a difficult word.
Yes, but just mechanically, I have a Logic file as well with every plugin I'm working on loaded in it already, so that I can make sure they load, and so that's what I loaded to run this session.
Yeah.
So then I have one last question. I'm really also now with a native instrument debacle this week. I was thinking a lot about, also with the saturated market currently with plugins, is there a future? Is there really stuff missing? What is in your pipeline, Paul? What do you think?
So here's in the politest possible sense, I will say that is a silly question, and here's why. And I'm going to use an example. You get auto-tune, and then you get that T-Pain song, and then you get "Do You Believe in Life?" Right? And you're like, oh, here's some producer trick we're going to be hearing on everything. This market's fully saturated.
And we did.
And then no, hold on, let me finish my sentence. And then you get the first James Blake record, and you're like, whoa, here's this instrument being used in a way that stretches what I thought the music with it could be, right? And so I think your question, is there room left, is best posed as, have we finished human creativity? And so I'm going to say, no, we have not. I am not going to be the old man and say everything good was done by the time I was 26.
Nice.
And so we don't need these new plugins, right? There's one answer. The next answer I'll give to it, though, is that I think it is a very difficult time to be out there making a kind of aliasy square wave with a shitty low pass filter and trying to sell it, right? That's a pretty saturated market. So I think the quality you need to break through the market and the innovation is high, and so that's going to happen. But look, like Future Verb is kind of awesome. Like I can't make a track with that Piano Tech and Valhalla, but I bought the new one still, right? Yeah. So there's stuff happening, and you see, here's another great example, right? The AI stem splitter in Logic and Live has one as well. It's changed the workflow for how my band records rehearsals, right? Because we can, and so like seems kind of dumb, but like super awesome. Like here's a tool that you thought people were just going to use to rip the drums out of Michael Jackson tracks, but instead it's changing it's changing the way you think about something as dumb as I put a zoom in the corner, but now I can still add compressors to just the drums, right? And so I think we will continue to see people not knowing that the market is saturated, not knowing that every plugin ever has been created, and then creating something that's cool. And then someone else is going to take that and use it in a way that you completely don't expect to make an album that makes you go, wow. So there you go. But I still, no, I would not start a plugin, a subpar plugin synth business.
That was such a nice ending of a show. So now you but I don't believe what I just said.
No, I totally. No, so let me be clear. I totally believe what I just said, but I wouldn't. I think the idea of you could ship an okay plugin that sounds kind of like a mini Moog. You're right. That market's saturated, and you're not going to make more money doing it. Especially when you're going to get vibe coded into oblivion by people doing an okay job of it with Claude. Right. So there we go.
Question to Paul. What is that? Who knows Clap into Deep? Is everything possible in Clap as it is in ARA? Oh,
yeah. Clap has an ARA. Clap has an ARA extension. The VST3 wrapper and the AU wrapper projected through as well. So Clap has full ARA support.
So and now the magic question. I think what's behind that question. Melodyne. Would it be possible to port Melodyne to Clap?
Yeah, we want to have it. So, Paul, just
it's not a question to you. I know it's not a question to you.
Exactly. You guys love asking me about other people's
No. It was just the question behind that, I think. So I wanted to put it out in the air and not bringing you, in a bad situation. I know
we're putting on the pressure any way we can.
I don't even own Melodyne. I use FlexPitch, which is nowhere near as good as Melodyne, but it's very handy when I need to tweak a piece of pitch. Cool. All right. Anything else, or are we wrapped? I really appreciate you having me on, by the way, and talking about the work that we're doing in the team. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Paul, it was an honor. It's great talking to you, and I was curious who's the man who floods my email inbox from GitHub.
So my one piece of advice is turn off GitHub email. It's terrible. And the answer to Pete is no, I cannot.
Yeah, but maybe if you have some final words, what's up with a development cycle? Any new ideas, or is it just now?
Look, short circuit is obviously a big focus. I have some ideas to go back to 6 signs that have been shared at me from people who've thrown it in to make it even more exciting. Some more explicit phase distortion stuff, a la the CZ, some work on audio in. I also I coded up a while ago this way to do phase distortion through a bank of audio rate modulated all pass filters that sounds really cool. So I might add a 5th FM mode to it that does that. Just to really, layer on the details and options. So, people who are looking for an introduction to FM synthesis can use something else still. That's in the loops. Surge 1.4, Surge Nightlies now have a convolution reverb in it that we have that works really nicely.
Wow.
A bunch of other features. We'll pull that together, I'm sure, this spring sometime. And then I don't know. I have some other ideas. I have a bunch of other semi-finished projects, like the one Omni talked about. Maybe I'll finish some of those. I don't know. I just time and focus. Luckily, the weather is bad now, so I'm getting a lot done on short circuit.
Okay, Odo, what's up for you? What's next?
I'm getting slow this year. I have a lot of things on my notes, a lot of different topics I want to cover, and just thinking a little bit about changing everything I do, for example, on my YouTube channel, just to make it more accessible to people that are not so deep into stuff. So make it a little bit more easy, a little bit more easy to get everything and slower. So I'm working on some stuff, thinking on a lot of different ways how I can make everything a little bit more understandable, not so, because after a while you get too deep into stuff and then you don't think about people that are new to some topics. And then it gets a little bit like nerdish mumble, and I really don't want that. And so I have to rethink a lot of stuff. And Sure. This week coming, it's not announced yet. The German podcast Filter Bubble will be again there with Alex from Belgium. And as well in February, there will be with Stefan Bobinger with the synthesizer museum and the synthesizer studio of Berlin. We make another show. And I think there we will talk about Native Instrument because he is developing some plugins with Reactor still. And so it will have a big impact on him, I think, what's happening there.
I stopped in that museum when I was in Berlin last summer, and that was a great spot. It's really nice. It's like, what a collection. Oh, my goodness.
And
they let you play them.
Yeah.
Will you go to Super Booth, Paul?
Me? I don't know. Probably not. I might go to, I don't know. I'm not really a conference person.
Sorry? Okay.
Maybe. Okay. I'm not really a conference person.
It's not a conference. It's a meeting of nice people. It's not a conference.
It's more like a hippie festival.
Yeah, it's more like that. Yeah. So.
I don't know. I'll talk to my family and see what our summer plans are.
Berlin's always worth a trip in May.
Berlin is a great city.
Yeah. So
what's up with you?
Yeah, I'm afraid I just need to support Shortcircuit in Convert with Moz as well. So the multi-sample converter.
So I'm going to tell you again. We did this on purpose. We are not making the Shortcircuit streaming format a public API that we're encouraging people to work to. We're going to write exporters from Shortcircuit, but Shortcircuit multis are just a direct binary representation of the object stream using a particular library.
Okay.
So we didn't want to add another sample format in there when we could just import all the sample formats that already existed, right? So
we need to talk this offline.
I mean, you can go read the code and take a look at one of the multis in a dump.
Okay, we talk later. And I just released Bitwig support for Oxy 1 Mark II. Many people ask for that. A really nice little tool, the Oxy 1. And I also got a new toy here just this week. The Electro 1 Mini, and this is really nice. It has 8 knobs and can also be touched, and you have more buttons. And yeah, it's really cool, and support is upcoming.
Nice.
Yeah, that's something for you, maybe, Odo. It's really small on a desk, and it comes with a little small stand as well, so you can do it like that.
And what does it do? What do the knobs do?
You can program it. It's actually I see Otto here. It's actually started out as a hardware controller, so that's the original one. It's a big one, the Electro one. That has.
And what's on the screen?
On the screen is everything you want. So it's normally a control for the knob. So it's directly related to the knob. So you have 8 controls. And this can be quite broad of options you have there. There's also an interesting new element which covers 4 controls basically on one knob. And you can press a knob and then you get the individual editing for that. So it's really fast to get to lots of parameters.
And it speaks like Mackie control or something to get to every job?
No, it has an open programming interface, and you can use it offline. So it has an editor where you can add any kind of media message, but it also speaks Lua, which is quite interesting, which runs also offline. And pretty powerful, but you have to dig in it a bit.
You already have a video about that?
Not about the new one, no, because it's a little bit in the flow. We just released yesterday an update to the editor.
Okay.
And it takes a bit of work to support it.
I will have a closer look to that.
You should. It's really, really great. And build quality is top notch as the old one.
Great. Well, look, we're at 2 hours.
Yeah,
so
we should stop. That's it.
Yeah. Well, look, I just want to say as well, appreciate you asking me on, and appreciate all the support for the Surge team from everyone in the Bitwig community, and also I appreciate Convert with Moz, which I read in days before Claude and then recoded in C++. But now I just kind of want to get Claude to recode everything in C++ for me, so I can pull it into Shortcircuit. And if I do that, I'll let you know.
The benefits of AI. Great.
You know, I've been programming 50 years. I've worked with lots of programmers. Claude Code is a very good program. So useful piece of kit.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay, thanks so much, Paul,
Thank
and
you so much.
everybody who joined the show here, and I'm sure a lot of you will watch it afterwards as well. And yeah, until next time, we will about, I guess, when you say mid-April, we will announce it again.
Yeah.
Something on Otto's channel. And until then, goodbye.
Make some funky music.
Music.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.